Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man? They say murder three. Strange things that happen here, how stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree?
Welcome to Strange Things, broadcasting from the Arkanasa Radio Studios in Laredo, Texas. And welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. Today is Groundhog's Day. My brother was born on Groundhog's Day, made remembering his birthday very easy. He had me by 2 whole years, and he never missed an opportunity to remind me of the fact that he was the older of us and therefore smarter than me. Unfortunately, he developed Crohn's disease, and it took him away long before he should have gone. Then the weird part. My nephew had a son. They named him Harrison. He was born on Groundhog's Day. He looks exactly like photos of my brother from back in the 1960s. How bizarre is that? I'm waiting until he gets old enough to speak, and then I'm going to ask him if he's the reincarnation of my brother. I just might give him a few hints to make life interesting for John and Rachel. Oh, that would be evil, but funny. I'd better start making notes so I can pass them on to him when I get up there. The other day, I was listening to Astonishing Legends, a podcast recommended by the librarian Renee. They had Joe Bob Briggs on, talking about drive-in movies. The show was called Hosting Horror. Check it out, it's a pretty good show. I had no idea that Mala Nurmi, a.k.a. Vampira, was the very first late-night horror movie host. All the hosts that ever held court over the late-night movie world were following in her footsteps. And none of her shows were ever recorded, so you can't watch them today. For those of y'all that didn't grow up watching late-night movies, back when I was young, my dad had taken a job laying brick up in Madison, Wisconsin, way up north of the Arctic Circle, or at least as close as I ever wanted to get. Me and my brother were both born in Texas, but when you're that young, you have to go where your parents go. We would stay up all night watching a TV show called Ferdy's Inferno, which was later called Lenny's Inferno. They showed old horror movies that, if they were on today, I probably wouldn't watch. Blood of Dracula and Blood of Dracula's Son, Werewolf versus Dracula and Dracula versus the Mummy, The Mummy's Next Door Neighbor, things like that. Lots of old black and white movies, which was okay because we had a black and white TV. Our dad told us that color TVs were radioactive. We believed him up until I was old enough to realize we had a black and white TV because we couldn't afford a color set. My cat is serenading us from the background. I hope she quits it soon. Dick Flanagan would dress up in all black, and he'd paint his face so he'd look creepy. He had a sidekick named Valdemir and a box that would talk. Well, on TV it seemed like it was talking. Letters from fans would go into the box, accompanied by the sound of chewing and munching, and the letters were being eaten by the box. As I grew up and moved around, the one constant seemed to be old and sometimes bad movies. Well, I talk about how I like cheesy movies a lot, but I never actually talk about cheesy movies, so tonight I'm going to go into some of my favorite movies. I wonder how many of y'all will recognize any of my top picks. I'm not going into any order, just the movies I like as I think of them. I will start right off by bringing up the Manchu Eagle Murder Caper Mystery. This is a 1975 movie starring Gabriel Dell, Will Greer, Anahita Comer, Joyce Van Patten, Vincent Gardenia, Barbara Harris, Jackie Coogan, and Huntz Hall, just to name a few. Jackie Coogan was famous for his portrayal of Uncle Fester in the series The Addams Family. Gabriel Dell had gotten his start as one of the dead-end boys in movies with such famous people as Humphrey Bogart. Huntz Hall was also one of the boys. So, the plot of the movie is Malcolm, played by Dell, is a poultry engineer, a.k.a. a chicken farmer, who wants to be a private detective. He sends off to a mail-order company and he gets his license by correspondence. This was long before the internet and instant connections. Back then you'd see an ad in the back of a magazine or more than likely a comic book. You had to cut it out and then mail it in along with a check or money order. Then you had to wait for the check to clear, which could take from 6 to 8 weeks. Whatever you ordered would arrive sometime after that, hopefully. Everything had a money-back guarantee, but this was dependent on how long it took to return the item and then waiting for a check that maybe came back, and sometimes it didn't. If you received something in the mail that was broken, well, you had to prove that you didn't break it once you'd opened the box. So, Malcolm becomes a detective. His very first customer sits down at the desk and tells about how he's looking for the Manchu Eagle, and then somebody shoots him in the chest with an arrow. Well, Malcolm is upset that his first and only client is now dead, so he hides the body in the closet and he goes looking for the killer. Just about everyone in town is a suspect, but the killer is a surprise. The gun battle in the end is well worth watching. When the body disappears, Malcolm enlists the aid of a bloodhound. He holds the dog in his arms and swings his head back and forth like a metal detector. When they approach a hand sticking up from the dirt, the dog barks to let Malcolm know he's found the body. I own my own copy on DVD, and I've seen the movie maybe 6 or 7 times now. Definitely one of my favorites. The next incredibly fantastic movie is Dead Alive. Timothy Balm, Diane Penlover, Elizabeth Moody, and Ian Watkins. In 1957, an explorer named Stuart McAlland and his team smuggle a captured Sumatran rat monkey off of Skull Island. The rat monkey is a hybrid creature that results from the matings of tree monkeys with plague-carrying rats. As the team is about to escape from the island, warrior natives show up demanding the return of the creature. Well, Stuart is bitten by the rat monkey, and then he's hacked to pieces by his crew who fear the bite will lead to nasty things. The rat monkey is then shipped to Wellington Zoo in New Zealand. Lionel Cosgrove takes his girlfriend, Paquita Maria Sanchez, to the zoo to see the animals. His overly protective and domineering mother, Vera, sneaks around trying to keep an eye on her son, and Well, she winds up getting bit by the rat monkey. She then eats Paquita's dog. Lionel locks his mother in the basement to keep her from killing anyone, but as needed for the movie, people get bit. Each person who gets bit by Vera turns into a zombie and then tries to bite everyone else. Soon, the basement is overflowing with zombies, and it's up to Lionel and Paquita to save the world using blenders and lawnmower and anything with sharp edges. Talk about bloodshed. The director must have shipped in all the fake blood he could find. Not buckets, but 55-gallon drums of the stuff. Originally, the movie was called Brain Dead, but the name was changed when the movie arrived in the U.S. If you haven't seen Dead Alive yet, it's past time you did. The only thing missing is Mike Nelson and his robot friends. I also own this spectacle of the silver screen, which probably never made it out of the drive-in. Released in New Zealand in August 1992, it came to the United States in February 1993. If you've never seen a drive-in movie, you've missed a major part of our culture. A partial drive-in theater, Theater de Guadalupe, was opened in Las Cruces, New Mexico, April 23, 1915. The 700 people could be seated in the outdoor auditorium, and there was space available for 40 automobiles, which could drive in and park along the back row, allowing people to sit in their cars and watch the movie or stage play. The first movie shown by the Theater de Guadalupe was Bags of Gold, which was produced by Sigmund Lubin. 1921, a drive-in was opened by Claude V. Caver in Comanche, Texas. Caver obtained a permit from the city to project films downtown. With cars parked bumper to bumper along the streets, patrons watched the screening of silent films from their vehicles. In the 1920s, outdoor movies became a popular summer entertainment, but relatively few drive-ins were built due to logistical difficulties. In June 1933, in New Jersey, a man named Hollingshead began experimenting by showing movies in his driveway. Once he thought he had everything just right, he moved to Admiral Wilson Boulevard in Pennsauken Township, a short distance from Cooper River Park. He put in 400 slots for cars, and he had a 40 by 50 foot screen. He advertised his drive-in theater with the slogan, "The whole family is welcome regardless of how noisy your children are." I don't know what she's all up in arms about, but that's Roswell in the background. Talk about noisy children. After 3 years, Hollingshead sold his theater due to too many problems. But the idea was out. The drive-ins began popping up all over the country. They were especially popular in the South since it seldom snowed. The rain was a major problem since the droplets would pass through the projected image and it would screw things up royally. The great thing about going to the drive-in is you could bring your own food. It was in your car and nobody cared. We would take a pickup and place lawn chairs in the back. We could sit back and relax and almost hear the tiny speaker hanging from the side of the bed. Well, then some genius came up with the idea of transmitting the sound over an AM radio. You tuned your vehicle radio to the appropriate channel, and the sound was now so much better. You did have to keep your engine running if you had a bad battery, so you didn't kill it. And you had to drive in and out with your lights off, or you would incur the wrath of the other viewers. Well, soon young folks discovered the drive-in was the best place to take a date and then do the things you couldn't do in a walk-in theater. This led to a lot of bad press and parents not allowing their kids to go see drive-ins. Some of the cheesiest movies ever made had their debut at the drive-in. Speaking of cheesy movies, The Last House on the Left. It was bad. Not cheesy bad, but just plain bad. I saw The Last House on the Left at the University of Wisconsin in a room filled with folding chairs and a pop-up screen. Surprisingly, the movie was directed by Wes Craven in 1972. Half the audience had left before the movie had even run for 20 minutes. By the last quarter, there were maybe 20 people there to see it. The story goes, two girls go into the city to attend a rock concert. They run afoul of a bunch of murderers who kill them in very graphic, nasty details. Then, the four murderers wind up stopping at the home of one of the murdered girls. By far the worst scene in the movie was when the father gets thrown into the basement. He looks for a weapon to defend himself and his wife. He searches every drawer. There on the wall behind him is a shotgun. Takes him forever to find it, as the audience is yelling for him to just turn around and look. And then one of the killers simply yanks it out of his hands. Later in life, I went to see a double feature at the drive-in in Lamarck, Texas. I was surprised to find The Last House on the Left was the second film. The funny thing is, a friend of mine from work, Ron Graves, said he'd seen the same movie at the same theater on the same night. Well, I didn't see him there, but then I was watching the movie and I didn't know the guy yet. This is not one of my movies. I've seen the DVDs in stores, but I have no urge to buy it or to ever watch it again. I would say that twice was too many times. Well, the days of the drive-in are long gone, but man, it was neat while it lasted. 1967. A plane carrying a weapon more dangerous than a nuclear bomb goes down near Greece. To prevent panic, the military goes in dressed as tourists. They tell the locals they are there scouting a site for a new resort. The pilots are not able to make themselves known, and they don't contact the rescue team, thinking that they're just a bunch of tourists. The locals begin sending out word that their island is about to become a resort, and flocks of people come to be the first ones there. Soon the island is overrun with people all acting, well, like tourists. In the movie, they just love to dance to a song called The Jet, over and over and over. And they get in the way as the military try to find whatever that thing is that the plane had been carrying. Tom Courtenay as the navigator, Colin Blakely as the pilot, Sam Wanamaker as Mr. James Elias, Candice Bergman plays Electra Brown, and Ian Ogilvy as Peter. The movie was called The Day the Fish Came Out, and I've seen it maybe a dozen times. A really weird movie, but it was silly enough to be good. The next movie is about a burned-out writer who retreats to the northwest town called Hellview, where he plans to write the great American novel. Unfortunately for him, the lighthouse he's renting is inhabited by the spirit of a woman who killed herself there 100 years before and now wants him to replace her lost lover, Captain Howdy. When Captain Howdy is resurrected, two daring adventure seekers are brought in to try and solve the case and find out the secret of the lighthouse. I'm talking about a movie called Hysterical from 1983, starring the Hudson brothers. Bill Hudson plays Frederick Lansing. He's the writer. Mark Hudson plays Dr. Paul Batten. He's one of the adventurers. Brett Hudson is Fritz, the other adventurer. Richard Kyle is Captain Howdy. Kyle is best known for portraying Jaws in Moonraker. Julie Newmar plays Venetia, the woman who died in the lighthouse. Clint Walker is the sheriff who thinks everything has something to do with shark attacks. He has a giant shark mounted on two walls of his office. It has to go around the corner. They have just about everything borrowed from other movies. Cheesy and all, it is still entertaining. I've seen it about 6 or 8 times. How that guy rides his bike up the side of the lighthouse is beyond me. The three Hudson brothers were TV stars and singers. They had their own show for a while. Blood-Sucking Pharaohs in Pittsburgh, 1991. Detective Joe Blocker, played by Joe Sharkey, is looking into a bunch of weird homicides. The trouble is, he can't stomach the sight of blood. He gets violently sick. His partner, Sweeney Birdwell, played by Jack Dangle, is less than helpful. He places bets with other cops on how long it will take before Joe hurls. Sweeney's wife, Irma, smokes way too much, but she exercises to make up for it. She has a stair-step machine with a giant ashtray mounted on the handles. It looks like a copycat of a series of murders from out west is now being carried out in Pittsburgh. When the two detectives find they are at a loss to solve the case, Blocker enlists the aid of his former partner from California. Instead of his former detective partner, a meter maid, Dee Dee Taylor, arrives, as she's the daughter of the detective. Once again, the blood was brought in drums and dumped out liberally. The streets are flowing with the bright red stuff. I hurt myself laughing. Watch it, but only if the kids are off to sleep. 1981, there was a hurricane coming into the coast, heading for Galveston, and it was a bad one. The town I was in evacuated, and only a handful of people stayed. I stayed because I didn't really have any place to go. The hurricane dwindled down to nothing, and it wound up going into Louisiana as a tropical storm. Well, I sat in the apartment flipping through the channels until I found a movie to watch. Night of the Witches, 1970. A preacher named Ezra Jackson, played by Keith Larson, goes about the countryside stealing things and seducing women by saying, "The Lord could use a good woman like you." A bunch of witches living in the middle of nowhere are killing people to save them from a very nasty death that was coming up in their near future. The bodies wind up being buried all over the place, along with suitcases filled with money. Lots of long pauses as the actors try to remember their lines, and way too much makeup all blend into a visual delight. I had to search high and low to find a copy of this movie. Randy Stafford plays Athena. Catherine Loder plays Cassandra. I was surprised to find out that Catherine Loder died at the age of 38 from complications of diabetes 8 years after playing Cassandra. The billboard for Night of the Witches said, "Be afraid to scream in your seats. This is a double horror show of all time." Well, Not so much horror as funny, and I have a copy right next to my desk. Just a plain weird movie, but it's worth watching if you're into weird movies. I don't know why this next movie is considered to be cheesy, but I found it listed on several websites saying that it belongs on the list. The movie is The Princess Bride. I don't know why. I don't consider it a cheesy movie, but like I said, it's on the lists. The Princess Bride was made in 1987. Not only have I seen the movie about a dozen times, but I read the book twice when I was in school. I liked the movie. Oddly enough, Cary Elwes has been in dozens of movies since he played the Dread Pirate Roberts. Hardly anyone is able to name any of the movies he was in. I know he played Dr. Jonas Miller in Twister. He was the competitor who stole the idea for Dot, and then he gets killed towards the end of the movie. Wallace Shawn, the guy who plays Vicini, the guy that's always saying, "Inconceivable," well, he was convinced that he was going to be cut from the movie and replaced by Danny DeVito. If you watch the movie, anytime Vicini is on screen, look at his face. He works up a sweat in several scenes. That's because he was waiting for Rob Reiner to call him to the side and explain how the part would be much better if someone else was to fill it. And then there was Mandy Potemkin.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Inigo Montoya, you killed my father. Prepare to die. He said this about 20 times in the movie. Okay, he actually said it 6 times. It just seemed like a lot more. Potemkin was putting a lot of feeling into those words because his father died from cancer while Mandy was filming the movie. His dad had insisted on him staying with the movie no matter what, so when Inigo Montoya says, well, you know what he said, he was speaking to the cancer that had killed his father.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Andre the Giant plays Physique, the Brute Squad. He was 7.5 feet tall and he weighed 520 pounds. He was so big he was unable to sit on a horse. The horse would move away any time he tried to get on. So, in order to get the few shots of Andre on horseback, they had to suspend him from a cable and just hold him in place over the saddle. In the book, whenever the father was interacting with the son, the font would change so you'd know it was not part of the story being told. Kind of. The father was reading the book to his son, which was written by his favorite author, S. Morgenstern, which just happened to be the pen name for the real writer, William Goldman, who was the guy that was reading the book. Neither one of them have a name in the movie. They were just called the grandfather and the grandson. I like the movie, but like I said, I like cheesy movies, so maybe it does belong on this list. Funny how I like to watch just about anything with Tim Allen. I watch Last Man Standing all the time. I watch it on 2 different channels, so if there's an episode on one channel that I've seen too many times, I can catch one I've only seen a few times on another. I like the Santa Claus. Every year in December, I watch it a few more times, like 5 or 6 or maybe 7 times. My wife is like, "Why do you watch that so many times?" I like the movie. It was funny. There's a movie that fits into this list very well called Galaxy Quest, starring who else but Tim Allen. Tim plays the part of Jason Nesmith, who plays the part of Commander Peter Quincy Taggart in the canceled series Galaxy Quest. In order to make ends meet, the cast spend their days attending conventions and grand openings portraying themselves from the TV movie. They have no idea that some of their biggest fans are from outer space. Alan Rickman plays Alexander Dane, who plays Dr. Lazarus, the ship's science officer, and a member of the Maktar, an alien species known for their superior intellect and psionic powers. Well, Alexander hates the role, and he wants nothing to do with it, but he needs the money, so he grudgingly shows up. Sigourney Weaver is Gwen DeMarco, who plays Lieutenant Tawny Madison, the ship's communications officer and the only person aboard who can communicate with the ship's computer, because that's how the movie set was written. Her costume is always getting ripped up in strategic places to show off her body. Gwen is upset that she's only known for her looks and nothing else. The commander is asked by their biggest fans, the Thermians, to come to outer space and help them fight General Saris, who is intent on wiping out the Thermians. The starship NSEA Protector has been reproduced, including all the bizarre bits that make absolutely no sense but were used in obscure episodes of the movie. TV show. The trouble begins when the actors are required to become the characters they had played on TV without the benefit of a script or retakes. For example, the pilot, Lieutenant Laredo, doesn't actually know how to drive a starship. This is a really cool sci-fi movie based on a TV show come true. It took me back to the day I sat in the hallway of my elementary school and watched as Apollo 11 and Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon and made that world-famous speech. I must say, I was not impressed. I had watched Star Trek for years, and I thought it was kind of lame that Armstrong and Aldrin only got as far as the moon. Hey, come on, I was 9 years old at the time, and I had a loose grasp on reality. I think I still do. Well, I'm going to take a brief pause here and play some commercials and drink some coffee before my throat gives out on me, and maybe chase the cat out of the room. So don't go away. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to Arkanasa Radio.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Did you hear a bump in the night and you think it just might be a ghost? Contact the Laredo Paranormal Research Society at laredoparanormal@hotmail.com. That's the LPRS for all your otherworldly needs. Are you taking care of your skin, or are you going to wait and see how time treats you? Take care today by contacting Lourdes James, Independent Beauty Consultant, at 956-723-3019. Don't let time get the best of you. Did you go out UFO hunting and couldn't focus on the sky? Swing on by Del Norte Optical, 107 Calle Del Norte, right across from the Embassy Suites. That's not a weather balloon, that's a flying saucer. Coffee makes the world go round. And around here, we have the Organic Man Coffee Trike. 4501 McPherson, Suite number 9. If you're not looking for coffee, try their tea. It's the best in town. And remember, life is too short to drink bad coffee. And she's back. This is Arkanasa Radio you've been listening to. I wish there was a pause button on the recorder so I could quick hit that and chase her out of the room, but there isn't, so I'm either going to have to put up with her or re-record at a later time. Maybe I should just slip her out the back door so she can meet some of those young tomcats outside. Oh well, don't need any more kittens in the neighborhood. Now, when it comes to showing cheesy movies and getting away with it, there's just no comparing to the MST3K or Mystery Science Theater 3000. MST3K was created by Joel Hodgson and produced by Alternaverse Productions. The show premiered in KTMA in Minneapolis, Minnesota on November 24th, 1988. It later aired on the Comedy Channel for several seasons till it was canceled in 1996. Then, it was picked up by the Sci-Fi Channel and aired for 3 seasons until another cancellation in 1999. A 60-episode syndication package titled Mystery Science Theater Hour was produced in 1995. In 2015, Hodgson led a crowd-funded revival of the series with 14 episodes in its 11th season. First released on Netflix April 14th, 2017, with another 6 episodes following in November 2018. As of 2019, there have been 217 episodes and a feature film that have all been produced. The show initially starred Joel Hodgson as Joel Robinson, who is a janitor kidnapped and trapped by 2 mad scientists aboard the Satellite of Love. There, he is forced to watch a series of B-movies as a part of a scientific plot to take over the world. Movies that, to say the least, are cheesy drive-in movies. In order to keep his sanity, Joel builds a bunch of robots to keep him company. Tom Servo, who looks like a gumball machine, was one. Crow T-Robot, who looks like a cross between a crow and a bowling pin. The T stands for the. And Gypsy, who was always in the credits but seldom showed up in the theater. Joel, Crow, and Tom would sit in front of the big screen and make humorous comments on each movie as it plays, a process known as riffing. As time went on, the cast would change. Joel was replaced by Mike Nelson, who played Mike Nelson. The mad scientists were replaced by Mary Jo Pehl, who portrayed Pearl Forrester, and her 2 sidekicks, Bobo, who looked like an extra from the Planet of the Apes, and the Brain Guy. The movies shown on MST3K were some of the worst things ever put out on celluloid. The scary thing is, the folks who made these movies thought they were doing a good job at the time. Things like Space Mutiny, made in 1988 in South Africa. A bunch of space voyagers are en route to colonize some distant planet when Kelgan sabotages the ship just as an important professor from Lord knows where is about to land on the ship. The loss of guidance control causes the ship to explode. The shuttle's pilot, Dave Ryder, who's played by Reb Brown, is somehow able to escape, but the professor dies in the explosion. The sabotage seals off the flight deck for a number of weeks, which gives Calgon the opportunity to attempt to wrest control away from the crew. The whole film was shot inside an abandoned factory. There are steam pipes and metal catwalks everywhere. The crew rides around in these speeders that go slower than I can walk. If I were watching this at the theater, I'd be out the door after about the first 10 minutes, but seeing it on MST3K, the movie takes on a whole new perspective. The riffing makes it worth seeing several times, which I have done. Sissy Cameron, played by Leah Jansen, who wears a low-cut outfit and has the same part as Sigourney Weaver in Galaxy Quest. Not much acting, but she shows off her body. Cameron Mitchell showed up, but I don't think his heart was in it. He plays Alex Jansen, and he got his son a job on the movie as well. Cameron Mitchell Jr., who plays Blake, but I don't remember what Blake did or if he actually did anything. The cast of MS3K had to sit through each of these stinkers 3 or 4 times so they could get their parts to fit in right. I don't understand how they escaped with their sanity and never wound up being committed to an asylum somewhere. The crew had 40 different names for the main character, Reb Brown. He was called Slab Bulkhead, Fridge Large Meat, Punt Speed Chunk, Butch Deadlift, Bold Big Flank, Split Chest Hair, Flint Iron Stag, Bolt Vendor Huge, Thick McRunfast, Blast Hard Cheese, Duff Drinks a Lot. Had enough yet? How about Trunk Slam Chest, Fist Rock Bone, Stump Beef Knob, Smash Lamp Jaw, Punch Rock Groin, Buck Plank Chest, Stump Chunkman, Dirk Hardpeck, Rip Steak Face, Slate Slab Rock, Crud Bone Meal, Brick Hard Meat, Rip Slab Cheek, Punch Side Iron, Gristle McThornbody, Slate Fist Crunch, Buff Hardback, Bob Johnson. Bob Johnson? I think that was Tom Servo. Blast Thick Neck, Crunch Butt Steak, Slab Squat Thrust, Lump Beef Broth, Touch Rust Rod, Ref Blast Body. My favorite was Big McLarge Huge, a Smoke Man Muscle, Eat Punch Beef, Hack Blowfist, and Roll Fizzle Beef. They called him by 50 different names, and every one of them was hilarious. In 1968, a movie came out from Japan, but it wasn't the typical Japanese monster movie. Green Slime. I saw it as a movie, and I saw it as an MST3K movie. Both were in my mind worth seeing. Robert Horton is Commander Jack Rankin, the leader of a scientific mission to save the Earth. After destroying a giant asteroid heading towards Earth, the scientists discover they accidentally brought back some strange green substance that soon mutates into a monster. The monster goes about the space station eating folks and reproducing itself. What separates this from the run-of-the-mill Japanese movie is there are no Japanese in it. No crowd scenes of people running back and forth as Godzilla rampages through Tokyo. Instead, you have all these white folks running about being chased by green, one-eyed monsters with tentacles. Luciana Paluzzi is Dr. Lisa Benson, and Richard Jekyll is Commander Vince Elliott. MST3K got their hands on Green Slime in September 1988, and they hammered out a movie complete with all the gaffes. But the movie was never shown on TV. This was their unaired pilot, that was later shown at a convention by Joel Hodgson in October 2008. So if you look up the MST3K movie list, you'll see Green Slime listed as number 0. So the first MST3K movie aired was Invaders from the Deep, set in the year 2065 in an underwater world of Marineville. The surface world is united under one government and is at peace. Having conquered the galaxy, man has turned his attention to the exploration of inner space, the oceans, that cover 3/5 of the world and provide a vital new source of mineral resources. But this inner sanctum is peopled by many alien races who are hostile to the surface folks, whom they see as invaders. One group, the Acrophibians, a race of undersea warriors ruled by Titan, have sworn to invade the surface world and destroy the forces of the World Security Patrol, an international organization set up to preserve world peace. Good thing I only saw the MST3K version. The actual movie would have probably driven me insane. 1987 brought us Bad Taste, which is also one of my all-time favorites. The residents of a small town are missing, and so the government send in the boys to find out what's going on. The boys arrive to find zombies running around town gobbling up people, and the bloodshed begins. Lots of shooting and bleeding, excessive use of insides being removed, brain eating, and intestine pulling. What you might find surprising is who directed this movie. Peter Jackson is responsible for this zombie-eating humans movie. And who is Peter Jackson? He directed The Frighteners, the movie with Michael J. Fox, where he plays a psychic con man who suddenly becomes a real psychic hero. Jackson also directed Lord of the Rings. His latest film is They Shall Not Grow Old, about World War I, which I want to see as soon as I get a chance. Peter Jackson follows in Alfred Hitchcock's footsteps by popping up in his own movies. In Dead Alive, he plays the mortician's assistant. In Lord of the Rings, he plays a carrot-eating drunk. In The Frighteners, he was a biker. In Bad Taste, Jackson plays one of the main characters. He plays Derek, who has lots of guns and he shoots zombies a lot. So if you've ever wondered how those million-dollar directors got their starts, a lot of them started out by directing cheesy movies. Escape from New York was original and entertaining. In 1981, John Carpenter directed this movie where the president gets kidnapped by radicals who crash his plane into a prison city where New York used to be. Donald Pleasance is the president. He played Dr. Loomis in Halloween, which was another Carpenter movie. The hero is Snake Plissken, played by Kurt Russell. Snake has to slip into New York, find the president, and escort him back out to Control Center. The movie is over the top and has just about every cliché in the book. There's a gabby cab driver played by Ernest Borgnine. An overly smart guy who somehow gets the babe, played by Harry Dean Stanton. The babe is played by Adrienne Barbeau, who has the hots for smart guys. Isaac Hayes is the Duke. He runs the city prison. John Carpenter also directed a movie few people have seen, let alone ever heard of. A Dark Star, 1974. And yes, I have a copy here somewhere. The story goes a starship, Dark Star, is on a 20-year mission to go around the galaxy, finding unstable planets and destroying them. The captain dies early on in the mission, but they keep him on ice in the hold so the second officer can converse with him psychically. The bombardier is actually a fuel specialist who accidentally got on the ship just before launch. Due to being in space for too long, the entire crew has gone slightly nuts. This, combined with the storage room with all the toilet paper being destroyed, leads to some nasty difficulties. Low budget? Yes. Cheesy? Yes. Entertaining? Very. I've seen it maybe a dozen times, and somewhere on my book next to me I've got a copy of it. Another film by John Carpenter is Big Trouble in Little China, which also stars Kurt Russell. The main character, Jack Burton, is a truck driver. His truck is called the Pork Chop Express. After delivering a load to Little China, Jack tries to help his friend, Wang Chi, played by Dennis Dunn, find his missing girlfriend, Mao Yin, who has been kidnapped by David Lopan because she has green eyes, and is the key to eternal life. Egg Shen, a local magician, uses his powers to fight Lopan. Jack is the epitome of the unheroic hero. Kim Cattrall plays Gracie Law, who is a social worker who gets caught up in the whole mess because she has green eyes also. The movie is kind of a kung fu meets monster adventure. They made a comic book, or a graphic novel, about Big Trouble in Little China where Jack Burton links up with Snake Plissken, and they go looking for adventure. 2 Kurt Russell characters in one magazine. Written by Big Trouble in Little China's director, John Carpenter, and Borderland 2, Anthony Birch, Old Man Jack is supposed to take his final ride in the Pork Chop Express. The story takes place in the year 2020. The world has become a living hell. Ching Dai has declared himself ruler of everything, and the entire planet being part of it. The 60-year-old Jack, which means he'd be my age, is living out his retirement in a corner of Florida. To stay in contact with the few folks he cares about, Jack uses a shortwave radio. One day he's contacted by someone who says they have the answer to everyone's ills. This person claims he can take down Ching Dai. So Jack gets the Pork Chop Express fired up and back on the road to adventure. The movie was well worth seeing, and now they're thinking of making a sequel. This one is to star The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and co-star Kurt Russell as a much older and hopefully wiser Jack Burton. I hope it lives up to the first movie. Any Rutger Hauer fans out there? In Split Second, 1992 movie, he plays Detective Harley Stone, which is kind of a cross between Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon and the cyborg character in Blade Runner. Lots of guns and shooting and violence, if you see the unedited version. Detective Stone is looking into a series of grisly murders in futuristic London. The city is sinking into the ocean, or the water level is rising, depending on how you look at it. Lots of splashing around in flooded streets in wet, drippy situations like in Waterworld, only before everything sunk. The Stone is one of those cops that every time he gets a partner, the partner winds up dead, so his new partner is not welcome. Alistair Duncan plays the partner, Detective Dick Durkin, who is a brainy guy, but he's not into guns. Well, he's not into guns until he discovers the need for bigger and bigger guns, and lots of them. Pete Postlethwaite, too many letters in his name, Pete Postlethwaite doesn't believe Stone is doing a good job and is constantly trying to get him fired. So who is Pete Postlethwaite, you may ask? If you saw the movie Lost World at Jurassic Park, he was the hunter hired to chase the dinosaurs around the island by Pete Ludlow. He was also Father Brennan in The Omen. He's the guy that got impaled in the cemetery. Kim Cattrall plays Michelle McLean, who is Stone's kind of sort of girlfriend that the killer begins to stalk. The killer turns out to be not human, but he's made up of DNA from all of the different people he's attacked. Lots of shooting and running around. This makes up for the less than admirable script. The 1987 movie The Hidden was unusual and unique. An alien parasite with the ability to possess human bodies goes on a violent crime spree in L.A., committing dozens of murders and robberies. In pursuit of this extraterrestrial criminal is an FBI agent, Lloyd Gallagher, played by Kyle MacLachlan, who played another FBI guy, Dale Cooper, in Twin Peaks, and the local police detective Tom Beck, played by Michael Nouri, investigating the rash of violence. There's not a lot of bloodshed, and they managed to not shoot up the city, but the story was original, and coming out of Hollywood, this was good. Hollywood will take a bad idea and run with it until there's nothing left. It's a cheesy movie worth seeing, and then there is some trash being shown that I can't figure out why. I'm not going to mention any of these because someone out there must like these kinds of movies, or why would Hollywood make so many sequels to them? Another movie I liked and watched a bunch of times was House. No, not The Doctor. This was about a house. An author named Roger Cobb inherits his aunt's house after she commits suicide. While living in the house, strange things keep happening to him. He has visions of his army buddy who was captured and killed in Vietnam. Well, then Roger discovers the bathroom mirror is actually a doorway to another dimension. Weird and creepy, lots of unexpected things popping up. William Catt, the guy from The Great American Hero, plays Roger Cobb. George Wendt as Harold Gorton. He was in Cheers. Richard Mall plays Big Ben. The movie must have been somewhat successful because they made a sequel, followed by another sequel, followed by another sequel. By number 4, I think the budget was down to a few $100s. It was pretty much the same story, only being retold for the 4th time. Lastly on my list of good but bad movies is Troll Hunter. A group of students are investigating a series of mysterious bear killings, but learn that there are much more dangerous things going on. They start by following a mysterious hunter and learn that he's actually a troll hunter. Talk about obscure. This movie came from Norway in 2010. I stayed up late into the night to watch it because I'd never seen a Norwegian movie before. I'm just glad it didn't have subtitles. It had been dubbed in English. Otto Jasperson plays Hans the Trolljurgen, or troll hunter. He's a cranky old recluse who lives in a beat-up travel trailer. As the students begin to investigate bear attacks, they keep running into Hans. The bear attacks are actually troll attacks, and the government is covering it up. Hans, Morten Hansen, is thin. Thomas Alf Larsen is Kale. Johanna, how do you pronounce an O with a slash through it? Johanna Mork plays Johanna. This made remembering who she was playing so much easier. And Ermila Bergdomus as Malika. I don't speak Norwegian, so I doubt I pronounced these names correctly, but that's kind of how they were spelled. The movie's worth watching just because it's different from most movies coming out of California. The trolls looked a bit cheesy, but it's still worth watching. I liked it so much I'm either going to buy a copy or I'm going to catch it on TV as soon as I have the time to watch it again. Weird movie, The Troll Hunter, but still, I liked it. For no known reason I can think of, Hollywood thinks they simply have to change things in order for a movie to be shown in the United States. The first time I saw Godzilla, it was starring Raymond Burr. An American reporter named Steve Martin, no, not the comedian, played by Raymond Burr, is pulled from the ruins of Tokyo and taken to a hospital filled with maimed and wounded citizens. Martin begins to recall in flashbacks stopping off in Tokyo, where a series of inexplicable ship disasters catches his attention. When a sole survivor washes up on Odo Island, Martin flies there for the story along with Tomo Iwagana. Right. Raymond Burr was never in Godzilla. They filmed him in a few scenes and then spliced them in so it kind of looked like he was in the movie. All this did was screw up a good movie. But for years everybody over here thought that Raymond Burr was in Godzilla. 1985, New World Pictures released Godzilla 1985, an American adaptation of Toho's The Return of Godzilla. Like the original Godzilla, it used footage from the Toho movie with added footage shot in Hollywood and the dialogue recorded in English. Raymond Burr would recreate his role as Steve Martin, only now he's acting as an advisor to the Pentagon. But he didn't interact in any of the main story as he had done in The King of Monsters, the original Godzilla. The interaction were scenes of Burr looking out a window as Godzilla rampaged through town, and it kind of looked like he was there. The Pentagon scenes didn't fit into the rest of the movie, and so all it did was confuse things. Just a bunch of guys in uniform discussing what was going on in Japan and not really doing anything. I wouldn't even give this a cheesy description, just plain bad. I later got to see Godzilla without any Hollywood additions, and I must say I do prefer that over the Hollywood edition, but with English instead of subtitles. I don't like subtitles. I saw the movie, The Boat, in German, with subtitles, and I missed most of the movie trying to read the text at the bottom of the screen. I had to go get a different version in English so I could enjoy the movie. I also did the same thing with Soldier of Orange. I hate subtitles. It's like reading a book while the TV is on. You can't get much of the book read because the TV distracts you, and you can't watch the action scenes because you're busy trying to read the story at the bottom. And, well, anyway, I prefer it when they dub the voice. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. I know it's a bit different from my usual show, but I kind of felt compelled to try it. If you have a few weird, cheesy movies you liked, feel free to send me a note, and I'll say a few words about it. You can get a hold of me at strangethings@arcanasa.com. All the past shows can be found on YouTube now, and there are still over 100 shows on Podomatic. Tell your friends to listen up. I could always use the audience. Until next Saturday, this is Chris James.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man, they say murder 3? Strange things that happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.